Okay.
We're live? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to call the September 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Land Use and Building Management Committee to order. My name is Tom Livingston. I'm the chair. I'll now have a roll call.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Mr. Hooverman,
Present.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Burnett,
Present.
Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Present.
Thank you. And Mr. Roberts is not here at this time. So we have a quorum. Let's move on to public participation. Alan or Larry, is there anybody?
I do not have it. Nobody email me.
Larry, anybody on the line?
We do have Diane Laricella with her hand up. Also, Alan, I believe there's a phone number for attendees ending in 502. That may be Telesco. It may be the secretary. I'm going to allow them to talk.
Yeah, let's confirm that. I think that is right.
Phone number 502. If you're from Telesco, please unmute yourself. Oh, they raised their hand, but they didn't unmute.
Hi, this is Rosemary. I'm taking the minutes.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, Larry, if you can let Diane speak.
Yes, Diane, you're all set.
Good.
Diane, you're on mute, I think.
Hello, good evening. This is Diane Lauricella, 97 West Norwalk Road. Just speaking very briefly in general terms about your topics on your agenda tonight. A lot of good work is happening, a lot of things to do. However, I have spoken in the past about optimizing some of our projects, especially the school construction and additions. So because I want this to be put on the record for future discussions, but I'd like it on the record tonight, I'll just go briefly over the following agenda items. The first is B1, which is the general school construction updates. I still am of the opinion that the Jefferson School project can and should be explored for additional solar arrays placed at least on one of the two large parking lots. The reasons given so far have not been satisfactory as to why that should not or could not happen, given other districts in the state have said structures without any problems at all. So I look forward to a meeting that I was promised would occur where we could sit down and sort this out for solutions and at least some discussion. And as a citizen and as a fellow Democrat and as a female, I think that it would behoove this committee to accommodate someone like myself who wants to help with saving money for the taxpayer, progressing our reduction of the carbon footprint, and also just providing some good solutions for the future in our very complicated school district building programs. Number two, B2, I would like to know if in the Narragansett School Kitchen Upgrade Program, if food scrap recovery and recycling areas are included in the plans, and also a hand washing station for the kids that are inside the cafeteria, especially due to COVID. It's a $250,000 project. I think it's a terrific project, long in coming, but in the past I've asked about accommodations for food scrap recovery and recycling because that needs to be designed. Areas need to be designed some spot for the kids to place things, but also for the kitchen staff in the back. Now, I do know that you're planning a food tray washing station, which is terrific. Number three, B3, Cranberry School, a $1.8 million project. I have yet to understand if the building orientation has been optimized, has been designed to optimize both active solar panels on the roof of the newer buildings and passive solar of ours, so that we reduce the need to use lighting internally. There have been studies done that I'm sure the Antonazzi Associates are aware of, and probably Mr. Giuliano, that kids have been shown to actually increase by many points on their tests when they have natural light as much as possible versus produced light internally. So I would like to know, in the plans that I saw in your packet, I do not see necessarily an orientation of fitting those newer buildings and the renovated gym for solar panels, but also for passive solar. So I'd like to know about that. I'm curious about it. I am very happy with the selection of Antonazzi Associates. As a former consultant, if my client doesn't want me to look in a certain area, I won't do it. I know Antonazzi Associates is equipped to optimize renewable energy, especially passive and active solar. But if they're told not to do it, or if it's seen as not being important by our current project managers, they won't do it. And I've not been satisfied with any reasons when I've listened to many Zoom calls over the last 2 years on other projects, but it's this project with Antonazzi. So I would like to know whether these reasonable requests could be answered in some form, either in writing tonight or with a meeting with me, because I've been very civil in requesting them. Lastly, because the city is helping with item 6A, 98 South Main Street, there's going to be a new roof on there that I believe the city's responsible for. I just want to make sure that it would accommodate solar panels. This has been over 5, or actually in the Moshe administration. And around 2013, there was a possibility of putting solar panels when some repairs were done by the South Norwalk Community Association. It didn't happen. So since part of the plans for this important building with YMCA is to do a roof reconstruction or roof repair or some roof work, let's make sure that we can place solar panels on there, because it will reduce the cost of operations to Mr. McDowell and the YMCA, but also it will make our building that we own more valuable. And it would be through PPA. It wouldn't be purchasing the solar panels, it's through leasing them. So I thank you for your time. One way or the other, I would like answers to my reasonable requests. And I thank you for your time and have a nice evening.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else, Larry, who wants to speak?
If anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand now electronically. If you're calling in, I think it's, is it *9 or *7, I believe, on your phone? No, we don't have anyone else.
Okay, then I'll close the public participation and move on to approval of the minutes from the special meeting held August 11th, 2020. Do I have a motion? Anybody? Ms. Smith, thank you. I do have a couple minor changes, and then others may have changes as well. First one being on page, just pulling this up on a different screen, is sorry.
May I just take this moment? I just want to recognize Darlene Young, Councilwoman.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Okay. All right. So page 5, this is the third from bottom paragraph. It's second line. Mr. Livingston said that some had greater resources than others. So why give free lunch that they didn't need? Lunch should be rent. And then finally, it says on the last page, the meeting was adjourned at 7 Oh, no, so that's correct. We started early that day. So just the one change. Are there any other changes?
I have
Yes,
one minor
Council,
change of the adjournment. Ms. Smith moved to adjourn, not Mr. Smith.
I should have caught that one. Okay. Any other changes?
yes, Councilmember Livingston, on page 1 of the minutes at the top, it should read that it was a special meeting.
Yeah, good catch.
And on page 4, the correct spelling of Councilmember Hooverman's name, H-E-U, not U-E.
Okay, any other changes? All right, seeing none, I'm just gonna call, just call for just a voice vote or raise your hands if you approve the minutes as amended. Anybody opposed? So it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the first item tonight, which will be, Alan, do you want to do the?
Well, I can do that later,
Okay.
the whole business.
Let's move that to the item. It's the Historical Commission, item A1, which is review bid for installation of an elevator in the Norwalk Museum in compliance with ADA requirements, and refer a recommendation to Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract with AV Tucci Inc. for the installation of an elevator at the Norwalk Museum for a total not to exceed $469,978, account noted. B, authorize the Historical Commission to execute change orders on contract for a total not to exceed $47,000. Do you have a motion? Anyone? Mr. Keegan, thank you. David, you want to talk about it?
Sure, thank you, and good evening. I think you're all familiar with the Historical Society Museum building, which is next to the Health Department at the end of the City Hall parking lot. In 2014, when we started renovating the building, we worked with an architecture firm, Aurora Magani Architects, through a competitive bid to come up with an ADA plan for the building itself. The building was constructed in the early 70s, well before ADA. To manage the cost as well as just the manageability of getting all this done, we divided up the project into 5 phases. We completed the first 2 phases, which dealt with the exterior ADA ramps to get people into the building, the 2 different levels of the building. And now we're starting to address the interior of the building. And not surprisingly, the biggest and most complicated and most expensive item is installing an elevator. So we're proposing installing a 3-stop limited use, limited access elevator, otherwise known as a LULA, which are much less expensive to install than a heavy use elevator, although you have to get a special approval by the state, which we have already done. To reach the basement level, the first floor, and the second floor, which will give access to all of the building to visitors and staff. We put out a bid. We received 8 responses. You should have a bid summary in your packet. The low bidder was $415,000 and the high bidder was $620,000. The low bidder, Majori Construction, at $415,000 without add alternates. Unfortunately, they did not meet the bid requirements for the experience. In the bid review, in the bid package, we asked for 3 projects of similar nature installing an elevator in the past 5 years. They didn't have any elevator projects in the last 5 years. When we did a bid walkthrough with them, they had done one elevator project 10 years ago. We then looked at the second lowest bidder, which is AV Tucci. They did meet all the bid requirements. They submitted 3 elevator projects in the last 3 years. With the 2 add alternates that we have, the actual difference between the low bidder and the second lowest bidder in Tucci is actually just $23,000. We feel comfortable with going forward with AV Tucci, and that's what we're asking the Land Use Committee to approve tonight and refer to the council. and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions, discussion? Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Livingston. David, my question is, we've been working on trying to get the building compliant, ADA compliant since 2014. So for the past 6 years, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
So, and what phase is this elevator? Is this elevator of the whole plan?
This is phase 3 of 5 phases that we defined. There may only be one more phase. We're going to scrutinize the last 2 phases. There's some things that we may or may not need. That's kind of where we're at. I mean, this is the biggest, most complicated. You know, we try to, the Historical Commission tries to manage their budget at a capital budget request at a fairly consistent level from year to year. So we layer things in small amounts because we know that there are other important priorities that the city has. So that's why we divide these projects up into small chunks.
And that's, thank you for that, because that's kind of where I was heading is, you know, what were the remaining phases, and if those phases were less expensive and more critical to do as opposed to the elevator, which is at a cost of almost $500,000. You know, is the elevator an item that we could possibly put off till next year and address the other phases just due to the large price tag for the elevator in this very unknown financial environment right now?
Sure.
If we feel that the elevator is critical and it needs to take place now, all for it. But I was just interested into what other work needs to be done, and if those items are of less expense that we might be able to do now and save the elevator for a later date.
That's a good question, and I certainly appreciate the perspective that you're asking that from. So we can now, but the first 2 phases address getting people with disabilities into the building. That was our first part, because you can't do anything until they can get in. So we've addressed that. Then this phase, the elevator, addresses getting people be able to go throughout the building to get to the 2nd floor, to get to the basement. And that's really the most important piece left. The last 2 phases deal with bathrooms in the basement level and kitchen area. And then there's also an exterior, another exterior item that we may eliminate. But really, this is the most critical piece left to do. The kitchen we can wait on. We do have 1 bathroom that's ADA compliant, so we can wait on the bathrooms. That's why we prioritize this project next. But the problem now for our visitors is that we do have exhibits on the 2nd floor, and if somebody is in a wheelchair, they can't see them. So we videotape them and made those available so that they could see them electronically, but it's not really the same experience as actually being able to go upstairs and visit in person. But that's why we do consider this really the most important phase that's left. The rest we can wait on.
I actually just want to announce that Kadeem Roberts has just joined the meeting. And also, I assume everybody, or if you haven't been to the museum, you really should go. David and the group has done a tremendous job. But to the point he just made, going to the 1st floor is only seeing half the museum. You have to go upstairs. There's so much there. So I view this as pretty important myself.
Yeah, I echo Tom's comments. It's a gem. It's really a gem, and to not be able to experience the full museum, the 2nd floor is it's a shame. So I support this elevator at this time.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Let's go through the roll. Mr. Huberman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Sachinelli,
Aye.
Mr. Roberts.
Aye, and I'm on, Tom.
Yeah, I got you. Thanks. And I also approve. So
Yeah, I'm driving back now, so it's kind of difficult, but I'm on.
we got you. Okay, thanks. Okay, unanimous. Thank you, David.
Great, thank you so much, and you guys have a good evening.
You too.
Tom, can I comment before David gets off?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, darling.
Hi, David.
Hey, Darlene.
You do great work for the Historical Commission, and we appreciate everything that you do. And I just want to say that this kind of ties into what we just approved at our last council meeting to make the City Hall campus ADA accessible. So you know that we're trying to make it accessible from City Hall to the Health Department. And so we've kind of connected that piece to include the museum. And so all of this really is for the city. I think the city is doing a pretty good job in trying to ensure that all people have full access to our facilities. So I appreciate the work that David and the Historical Commission is doing.
That's a
Right.
great
And the
point.
city.
Great
Thank you
point.
so
Darlene.
much. Yeah,
Thank you.
good night.
Good night, David. Thank you. All right, if there's no objection, I'm going to move on to the item 6A, which is an update on 98 South Main Street, because we have Bob McDowell here from the Y. Alan, you want to take the lead?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I guess probably about 9 months ago, we have the Common Council approved made the action to approve a relationship with the Y to take over and lease the 98 South Main Street property for community services and other things. And it's a long-term lease agreement. And our intent was, I'm sure everybody remember parts of that, but without going into detail what we're going to do, Bob can answer some question on that. But what I'm thinking, the intent was to work on a lease agreement. Law department working with the Y's attorney for a few months, and the intent was to get it potentially hand the building over to the Y of as of roughly April 1st of this year, 5 months ago. Unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of things have changed. So us staff-wise, including me and Leisha King and I forgot who else, but anyway, we have a little group got together, and we got together with Y probably about, I would say, a month and a half, 2 months ago, and just see where everything is. And Bob, on behalf of Y, had mentioned some of the difficulty they have in terms of actively raising money and program and stuff, and that they are still very interested, and we are too. On behalf of the city, we express our continued interest. However, we wouldn't be able to do anything till we don't have a date, but we just assume something like June 30th of next year. So then we have a discussion about potentially, so the city will continue to operate the building for this year until whenever kind of thing. Well, let's say June 30th of next year. So we thought maybe there's some kind of interim program that we can look at possibly in the springtime, especially in the time of needs in the community with COVID, and there's needs in the community. So hope maybe there's something we can do together. It was a welcoming suggestion on both sides, and so Bob's going to talk a little bit about it. One other note I want to make is that building management is responsible for operation of the building. Because we anticipate the building return to Y, we did not request operating funds for the building from this year, which is from July 1st of this year to June 30th of next year. We only requested $25,000, $20,005. I don't know why $5 for the because for the operating budget. With the city continue to own and operate the building, we projected the year expenses for that building is about $145,000, $150,000, roughly in that neighborhood. So I'm making this residual fund from this year's operating budget for 98 South Main Street. So I'm proposing to the board estimate to use part of the remaining funds, about, I think it's about $120, roughly $125 maybe, of that residual fund money from this year to carry for next year, so we can continue operating building for one more year. So that's going to be submitted to the Board of Estimate as of October. But anyway, with that, I want to let Bob, you can go into what we talked about. One other thing I want to add is that this interim period of 1 year starting whenever, I mean, to June 30th, we were in discussion with Darren Callahan, the law department, that potentially maybe we can do some type of a license agreement. It wouldn't be a lease agreement, it would be a license agreement. So it's a kind of license, difference between license agreement and lease. Lease is that they have exclusive use. A license agreement means that we can potentially share use and we can have other things in the building at the same time. So we are thinking if you get the city and the Y can work out something to provide programming in the community, we will probably come back to the council. We will have to come back to the council for interim license agreement, probably to June 30th. That's our current discussion, and we'll probably either bring it back either October, latest in November. So with that, Bob.
Yeah, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Chairman Livingston, for inviting me tonight to give you an update on where we are. And also thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's very impressive as I sit here and listen and again, have the opportunity to view the work that is being done in Norwalk, especially during these conditions that we're all in regards to the public health crisis. So the Y obviously was affected by this public health crisis. And so as we were working through our situation of being closed in our main facility here in Wilton for 101 days, we were not forgetting about 98 South Main Street. So we had a few emails back and forth, where are we? What are we going to do? And then we finally came together with Alan, and I believe Tom was involved, and as Alan mentioned, Leisha and Darren were also involved, and Lamont was involved in our last meeting. So we're excited. We're still excited about the opportunity to serve South Norwalk and the city of Norwalk with this project. We have hit some bumps in the road. The balance sheet doesn't look as good as it did 8 months ago, but we're coming back. We've been open as an organization since June 20th. And so we're excited about that. So we still have a staff that's engaged, a board of directors that's engaged. We were even able to raise some funds for what we called COVID recovery, since we lost the opportunity to collect revenues and so forth and so on. So the opportunity is still there in front of us. So when we were speaking with Alan in the group and Tom, we talked about, being able to have this opportunity to get in at a later date, which is what we came up with. And I believe maybe in your packet you see a little bit of a timeline there that has the Y logo on it and goes to 2020 to 2021. We actually went down last week and met with Alan and Neil and his team, and we were looking at the facility again, because what we know and what you all know is what we were going to put probably a good $5 million of capital into this facility. Now, the first part of it would be about $400,000 shared between the YMCA at $200,000 and $200,000 from the city. That was for, the very first part of the commitment for capital renovations. We are going to move some, we've requested, Darren and our council are working on a pathway toward that, toward those expenses, especially during these times during the pandemic. So what we went into the facility to do was assess its readiness for some programming, what we would need to do to get the facility at a bare minimum ready for us to come in and continue to fulfill the program. Some of the examples of programming are on another page, hopefully in your packet, that explain what we're talking about doing, potentially some chronic disease group exercise, afternoon programming, AmeriCare's Youth in Government. There's a number of programs there that are listed. We know the community needs, during this health crisis. So we just don't want to come in there and run something that the community doesn't need. Also, we're going to engage the community further, have some open discussions, probably in the Zoom format, sort of like a town hall, get some input similar to what we were doing in March, and revisit the community because things have changed, obviously, and needs have changed in South Norwalk. So we want to be the organization there. We've had conversations with Nick Roberts over at Parks and Rec. So we're working on some avenues to be able to use the community park there, the John Ryan Park. And that's just gone real well because Nick also needs some use inside the facility. So, back and forth, we're learning more as we work with each other. And I think what we would like to do is, as we move forward, we're still committed, get this interim type of licensing agreement signed on, move forward through June of 2020 and sign, and before that have all of the lease all signed and ready to go and move forward for the next 30 years, and then get that capital campaign going in the meantime, and get those funds committed toward the capital investment. So that's where we are looking in the short term, preparing the building, finalizing lease or licensing agreement, start talking about investing in the capital. It was interesting to hear the comments earlier about the roofing situation, and we can explore those kind of, based on what obviously you own the property, and we want to, we'll be talking with Alan a little bit further about that comment. And it was interesting to hear about elevators, because that's a situation that could potentially need some attention in that facility, although it's just one floor and not three. And it is there already. It could be just renovated. So programs could begin as early as January, and we would roll them out. It wouldn't be a full day of programming. We would ease our way in after we learn some more, and then we would begin the program. Because we have heard that the community is, some people, what's going on with UCAN. AmeriCares is doing their services there. I've had conversations with Karen Gottlieb. I've had conversations with Adam and the Norwalk Housing Authority, and their plans. They are still committed to capital investment in that building. AmeriCares would like to expand. Norwalk Housing Authority would like to have 4 learning center rooms there. So once we get an architect of record on board, we can begin to clearly define those spaces and move forward, and at the same time be raising some dollars.
Before we ask questions, one of the things I want to advise the committee is that building manager responds for the building, and we've been maintaining the building. You may have heard that the mechanical system and roof issues and stuff like that. We've been doing for the last 2 years plus. We've been maintaining the mechanical system, so it's not like we're not band-aided the system. So when we actually real fixes to the system, so when there's repair, we actually do the repair. It's not like, geez, we band-aid this, and then by April 1st, and Y comes in, it's not a problem anymore. That's not our approach. Our approach has been and continue to be is that we're going to fix everything correctly. At some point, the system needs to be replaced, but I mean, we are confident the system will run up. If we stop providing service, it will run for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it may be, kind of thing. I mean, again, they are old, but at the same time, it's not old enough that we're going to have crisis tomorrow. So they've been maintained. The roof is have issues, but we repair what we need to repair, and there's no, except the skylight may have a couple of leaks on it. Other than that, the roof, if there are leaks again, we'll go out and fix it. So it's that's a little bit of a band-aid, but at the same time, it's a rubber roof, so any leaks is really at the seams. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a rubber roof. It's actually a anyway. So we would do all the repair necessary to maintain the roof, and then again, if there's a leak, and also it's good to have people in the building, because then if there's a leak, we know about it too. I mean, we do send people in there, I think once or twice a week, to just walk through a building, make sure there's no issues. So overall, the building system is running, the elevator is running. When we first took over, there's some issue with elevator and stuff. We have updated our service contract and it's fully serviced and it's been approved and everything else. So the elevator is running. So again, there's nothing to prohibit the Y to come in to use some of the offices.
Yeah, we believe, yeah, on our tour, we were able to discover all of that, which just Alan said. And I think, again, looking toward a January, January start to actively engage in that facility. In the meantime, we may lead up with some cosmetic work that needs to be done in the facility, so that it's not, it'll still be kind of the same old, but we'll have, we have to do the cosmetic work and we want to do that. So, I can attest to Alan and his crew, taking care of, from the first time I walked in there, 5 years ago when it was actually occupied, to now the facility actually and the mechanicals are working and they're in pretty good shape. So, we feel confident being able to get in there and do some and introduce some programming to the community after speaking with them during the fall. And that'll be an intro, like, we're going to be here, and let's all get together at the center of community at 98 South Main Street.
Right. Well, great, Bob. Thank you for that. And I'll open up for questions in a second. When do you think, Alan, we would get a license agreement to look at? Or?
We're not drafting any yet. So the purpose of this meeting is so we want to really basically edit an interim period to what's the council previously approved. It's a lease arrangement, which is going to originally start in April. But what it does, we actually added an interim period for about roughly a year, less than a year now, but let's say for the year ending on June 30th. So it's like a separate approval they need to do. So the reason we're coming back talking about it, so I want to present this idea to the committee and eventually to the common council that there is an interim program relationship they want to establish. If the committee is favorable to this concept, then I would come back probably next month and outline do a term list saying what we're responsible for, what we would do, what would the Y do and stuff. And then we go for a normal approval process.
Okay.
And then the law department would draft a license agreement. Unlike a lease agreement probably like 25 pages or something. I would think a license agreement probably like 8 pages or something like that kind of thing. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then we'll get it, like, assuming again the committee and the council approve it, is probably in October or November that the agreement drafted, and we'd be in position in beginning January, depending on what the Y program works and doesn't work during that time of the year. And the other thing too, it's there's still a lot of residual furniture and boxes and trash in the building. And my commitment so far to the Y is that it's just that by beginning in October, we're going to get everything out of the building, all the old furniture and all the stuff, and we're going to get dumpsters, get a couple of a few movers in there, get everything out of the building.
Is anything usable, Alan? Is any of that stuff usable we can give away, or?
We will go through and determine that. In fact, the building department actually took 3 tests last week. So we are nothing is really that good kind of thing, but if anything useful, there's some copier machines and things like that. We'll go through it, and anything value, then we'll recoup it. But other than that, mostly it's just, you gotta remember before it's neon, so a lot of stuff it's just secondhand already.
Okay. David, I think you had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Bob, thank you very much for your continued commitment to this project with Norwalk. I've got a couple of questions, I guess. One is that, I mean, we're in unusual times with COVID, and our schools are facing some very interesting issues to overcome. And I noticed that in Wilton now, you guys have created learning pods to deal with the distance learning model in Wilton for parents who need to have a place for kids to do distance learning, because they're not going to be in the schools. Has there been any talk about that possibility of the Y bringing that here to 98 South Main, which is an area that would benefit from this? We're doing a hybrid model of schools where we have kids who are going to be home with parents who are working. And I just wonder if there has been any discussion or that you've entertained the idea of being able to offer that service, because this is going to be an ongoing thing. And I think that though Norwalk is very ambitious right now in restarting our schools, I have a fear that we're going to be in a distance model the way Wilton is starting as well. So can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, David, thank you for that. And you're absolutely spot on with the work that we're doing in Wilton right now, which started on Monday, with some pods for distance or remote learning with Wilton students in mostly the elementary school level. We actually have about 4 classrooms going right now here in Wilton, so the need is there. And we would love to be able to do that type of work in Norwalk, and in 98 South Main Street probably would be ideal, because there are 3 classrooms already that would be able to be licensed for that type of work. And you know, it's timing, and as you said, you know, and we all don't know how long this is going to last, but we certainly could change, you know, what's going on in Norwalk Public Schools now. We are in Fox Run already. We are also in Columbus. So we have before and after school programming that have been in those facilities for a number of years. And we've also now that's been shifted around in those facilities. So yes, we would love to do that work. The sooner we could get into the building, the better, you know, but having that conversation with the Norwalk Public Schools would be something that we would entertain and be able to expand the work that for the need, because obviously there will be a need.
Thank you. Alan, has the public school approached the buildings department at all about anything like that?
No, they haven't.
Thank you.
I just want to add something here. What the Y is looking for is really just generally speaking, just the first floor. So second floor, the first floor is like 3 classroom and the community room. So far, my conversation with Bob is really focused on the first floor, the use of the first floor. Second floor is generally speaking all office space. They may need a couple of office here and there kind of thing, but nothing substantial on top. As we look at potentially doing a license agreement, I'm thinking at this point, and that's why I wanted to say this to the committee. I don't think it was the way I'm looking at it. I don't think this license agreement would be very program specific, because of the unknowns out there about what will happen by January, what program it is, and it wouldn't be, most likely would not be program specific and would not be square footage specific. So it's a little bit of it just get them into potential, they get ability to get into the building, and staff would manage that relationship, because I don't think we can get, I mean, just talking to Bob and then what he submitted so far, because originally I was thinking that the Y would give us a program, this very specific program, how many kids they're serving, how much square footage they need and stuff like that. But when I received this, and I mean, I said this to Bob before, so he's not surprised. I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, I understand it, because there's so much unknown, like what program do you run? You know, school changes, still changing every minute, how they reopen and not open and all these other things. So I respect that they don't come with that level of detail, which I was hoping for, but I recognize that it's not possible. So as we look at this license agreement, I'm just thinking of, or we're listening to Bob talk, is that I'm not sure we would define specifically what program, how many classes, what time, how many kids we serve, and blah, 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 all that. I don't think that level of detail is available to us. So I just want to bring that out for discussion tonight, so that when I go back to, assuming that the committee is interested in doing this interim strategy here, then I can just focus on what the committee would like me to, like a better way, negotiate with Bob, the Y on,
Okay.
so that we can bring it back.
All right, thanks, Darlene. I think you were next.
Go ahead, Greg. I'll wait. Go ahead, Greg. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Councilmember Young, for yielding to me. Doesn't happen often.
No.
No, it doesn't.
Happy birthday. Merry Christmas.
Actually, my birthday is this month.
45?
Yeah. Just staying on the topic that Councilmember Hooverman has raised, you know, with the Y in the building or not in the building, that still has a potential pod for distance learning. I know the superintendent has made the plea, the request to the community that if you know of a space that the Board of Ed could conduct, or, a pod, bring that to their attention. I think 98 South would be a great facility to the community for pod type learning environment. So I guess question one is, if the Board of Ed hasn't approached us, the building committee, can the building committee approach the Board of Ed? And two, is the building in the right fit up capacity to host a pod environment for the kids at this time?
Is that for Alan?
Yes, that would be for Alan.
Oh, I think maybe Bob, because Bob's is I never ran a pod before, so I don't know what's required. But there's 3 classroom there that was renovated. Bob, maybe you can, because since you're running a program that, so maybe you can answer that question better than I could.
Yeah, Greg, great question. Thank you. And yeah, again, this is my opinion. I believe the facility is in good enough shape now, but it would have to be observed, evaluated by the state and by actually the school district. Because when you take care of children for an extended period of time, it falls under some state guidelines, and there are COVID state guidelines for childcare. It just wouldn't be, distance learning. This becomes childcare. So those rooms originally were built to spec for after school programming. And so when we look at those rooms and the amount of space, again, now we're in the COVID environment, so maybe you could fit 20 children in those rooms before, and now maybe you can only fit 8 because of the social distancing that's involved. There's technology involved, so you have to have great bandwidth, and you have, so, but my first initial reaction is the space would be usable, but we'd have to, it's not up to the Y, and it's really not up to the city. It's up to the school district and the state to make sure that that space is licensable, because then you have bathrooms, and then you have all of the other entryways and exitways, in a sick bay or a sick room has to happen. You have to have designated space for that. So it could be worked on. It probably could be worked on, and it's probably, if we were to get out tomorrow, probably a 60-day lead time, possibly to have something like that done. But I would entertain a conversation with the school district at whatever level would be needed. And Greg, if you had, or Barbara, if you had any inroads to, who we could broker a meeting with, I would be glad to lead that rather than the committee.
I'm sorry. I could speak to Frank Costanzo when I get back to the office, whether tomorrow or Tuesday next week. From a facility side, as we talk about, 2 things that come up, the 2 things that are difficult from a physical side. One is security. Schools are going to require very specific security with lack of better word, man traps in terms of security and all the system that require associated with. The other thing is IT. There is no, because the Board of Ed and the city operate on the municipal area network, so we got to bring a line to that facility. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know how. Typically, it takes like 2-3 months. But at the same time, there may be other ways we can do something with the regular internet instead of the municipal area network. So that's something we need to look into. And the other thing would be just the interior improvement. There may be some the classroom, generally speaking, they renovated 3 years, let's say 4 or 5 years ago now, but it hasn't been really used that much. We may have to do some work in the bathroom. Generally speaking, the ADA compliance, but at the same time, we got to double check, and maybe we need to do some minor upgrades just to make sure they're nice enough for the community to use at this point. So those are some of the obstacles, I guess, from a building perspective.
Barbara?
Yeah, my understanding though with the learning pods, and I am aware that the superintendent has reached out looking for space. I believe that it's for the middle school and possibly high school students because, you know, the elementary is in full time. And I don't believe it would be for a long period of time. You know, I think it would, you know, be maybe a few hours. One group is in for a few hours, another group comes in for a few hours. So that's my understanding of it. It's for families who have chosen distance learning, you know, virtual, but need a little extra support. So, so that's that. And I would just like to say just how really terribly disappointing it is that we just, you know, can't move forward at this time with this project. It was, you know, I think back to all the work going into it, all the meetings and the announcement, and how really truly exciting this is, I'm saying is, for the city and the South Norwalk community. And COVID has, you know, it's just put the kibosh on it, and for temporarily, but it, you know, it heartens me to know you're still so committed, Bob. And I trust that we will get there. This will end at some point, but in the meantime, I'm very pleased and thankful that, you know, you're looking for an interim possibility for the community.
Thank you.
Darlene?
I did have a question, want to back up a little bit. Alan, did I hear you say, or the second floor would not be used? Was that correct?
Yeah, the conversation me and Bob have so far is primary, the first floor is where the utilization is going to be. If they need anything on the second floor, maybe just a couple of offices, that's it. So generally speaking, they're not using the second floor. Am I correct, Bob?
Yeah, yeah. And Darlene, up on that second floor, it's so divided up with office space. There's no, the largest space is that it was a conference room. So, you know, in our early occupancy, that's an area that could be potentially renovated first. And we have plans in talking with AmeriCares, there's plans to expand and it could possibly move on to the second floor. We aren't there yet. Conceptually, that's the idea. But yeah, it's not as usable as, you know, we would need. We'd have to not, you know, take a few walls down, but you know, those, so that's why we didn't look immediately at that space.
Thank you. And so, you know, there are a couple of events that usually take place there annually. And so, you know, those questions are going to start coming. Is the space going to be able to be used? And so with this licensing agreement, are we to get approval from the city, or do folks come to the city for that approval to utilize the space, if possible?
Most of these events happens during holiday season. So
right.
I think the earliest they'll get in is January 1st. I don't, unless there's a program that really the community really want to start earlier. But right now, our conversation so far has been the earliest is January 1st. So, or January 2nd, or whatever. So I don't think it impacts most of those holiday event that the community
okay.
in the building.
Perfect.
But we will make provision in there so that that the city always reserve. That's why it's license agreement. The city reserves the right to access the building instead of a lease agreement where they have a tenant control kind of thing. So license agreement it is so that we can do something together, and the relationship will be such that it's a partnership in this thing. So.
Any other questions, comments?
Just one. I know I always have one last thing.
Good. Go ahead,
Here we go again. Part of the lease agreement, there's a commitment of $400,000 initially, 200 from the city, 200,000 from the Y. As part of the interim program, we did not anticipate using this money. So this is the money will just stay as part of the future lease purposes. In the event there's a need, a physical need that, you know what, we really have to do the rules, and we will come back to the city and go through the whole evaluation process, because we don't want to put in stuff that need to be taken out later on. So we are sensitive to that. Again, so we are not going to spend any capital money at this point. Really just cosmetic touch up here and there, moving furniture, fix it, make sure if the toilet doesn't work, we fix it, and that's about all of it. If any kind of painting needed, I think again, I don't carry that kind of operating budget to paint the whole building. So it's something why they need to consider doing. So me and Bob will work out all the details in terms of what necessary, because we don't want to open the building and we want the building to be presentable when we open it. So that's one that we're sensitive to that too. So we don't want to open it and then, the community looking forward to why come in when the first program run, it's like, oh, so we recognize the need to be a building to be presentable when we do open the doors.
Does that include renovating that space up front that's kind of closed
No,
off?
in fact, we Chancellor, right now, we're gonna lock that portion off so the public doesn't get into. Because again, if we put any money, and let's say we say $15,000, it's just money wasted because the Y is going to change that. So it's only, so we spend the money only, the use of it is probably for 6 months or so, whatever. I mean, we're just
Right.
guessing a little bit, but again, we'll make that, if it's only cost us $3,000, we may do it. If it costs $15,000, $20,000, we will say no, right? So we'll evaluate all those options and see what's feasible. But the city's money is operating budget is limited, so we got to pay the utility bills and everything else between kind of thing. So, and the service contract for the elevators and the fire alarm systems and on kind of thing. So if we have a few dollars left, we may help do a couple of things. But other than that, it's financial size very limited.
All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Any other comments? If not, Bob, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate all you and the Y are doing to keep this project moving forward, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Chairman Livingston. Have a good night, everyone. Take
You
care.
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Alan, let's go back to an update on West Cedar. I guess it's
Yeah.
West.
West Cedar Street, about, I would say like 2 or 3 months ago, we looked at it, and we actually said it's okay to go to public hearing, but there's a few things I need to find out. I had a meeting with Darren Callahan and also Sharon Connors from Purchasing Department, because I had mentioned that the disposition of this property is kind of unique, whether we need to go advertise and how much of the property we want to sell to them and all. So we sat down, we spent a lot of time talking it over. It is staff combined recommendation as staff that we do not need to public advertise this. So the reason being is two reasons. One is that if you look at the site plan, on the upper portion of the property, on the northeast corner of the site plan, the city do need property from the property owner to maintain a right of way. So we need something from them directly. So to give us the ability to direct negotiate with the property owner instead of going to advertise for public bidding on the property. The other reason too is that because we are required to reserve an easement for the sanitary sewer line, it makes the property, generally speaking, not buildable. So the value to the general public is substantially or non-existent. So there's no reason for us to go out to public bidding on this property. So the law department and purchasing department is supporting the idea that we can negotiate with the property owner in terms of this real estate transaction, or not swapping, but we'll get some property from them and they get the property from us, and then we work out the value of it. Two things the law department wanted. One is that the property owner should pay for two things. One, the survey map. It so happened the city of Norwalk, DPW has done it already. So potentially we can use this one. The second one is a appraisal on the property. The property owner had went out and got an appraisal from a very reputable appraiser, but the position of the law department is that it doesn't matter who it is. We need to the property owner need to come to pay the city, and so that we can go out and get appraisal on the property. So those are two things. So with that, I would like to schedule a public hearing for next month's meeting. Those are the general terms of the, not terms, general parameter of this real estate deal, negotiation. So the public hearing would be really just for this disposition of property and then at appraised value.
So that's not on the agenda now to schedule it, so we need to.
I think we did approve it like 3 months ago, but I put it on the agenda again, so that just inform you that because there's some question that did not get answered last time. So that's why I want to update the committee before I put in this schedule the public hearing next month.
So it's a confirm. So the action item is to confirm the scheduling of the public hearing. That's what's on the old business. Yeah. All right. Any discussion, comments? Hearing none, one does call for approval. Not going to do a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. So unanimous. Okay, Alan, go for it.
All
Jim.
right.
Jim, I guess we're gonna go to you for an update, school
Yeah,
construction.
because everybody's tired hearing from me, so let's Jim do the talking.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Jim?
Yeah, can you see my screen?
No.
My goodness. Oh, excuse me. How about now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the school construction program update for the month of August or September, excuse me. Our overall schedule. The only project right now that's really not following the schedule would be the new Columbus project, which we can we'll talk a little bit more about as I go through the overall program update. Some good news, and it's kind of been dampened in the preparation for getting the students back to school in a COVID environment, is that we're complete with Ponus Ridge. We moved furniture in this past month. We moved Jefferson over to the new addition, the lower school, and we moved the middle school out of the lower school addition and back into their final location. So no more moves for the Ponus Middle School. Everything is complete. We do have some outstanding furniture that we'll be receiving mid-September. But it's really not affecting any of the teachers' areas, and the school's up and running and ready to go. So we're excited about that. We got our first project completed. Right now, we still are remaining under budget, although we did have some expenditures within the past couple of weeks, but we anticipate to stay under budget. Any questions on Ponus?
No, that's great news.
Yes, we're happy. Again, like I said, the excitement of finishing up a project kind of got dampened with the preparation for the COVID.
Yeah, because we set up all the classroom, and then as soon as we set up, they all move apart.
That's right.
All the furniture got moved all over the place, but it's fine. It's part of life, right?
Right. So the next project, the Jefferson project, the renovate is new, around 60,000 square feet. We're going to be removing the portables when we start this project, and it'll be strictly a neighborhood school for 426 students. We've met with the state this past July and got approval to continue on with construction documents. Again, as I stated, the lower school or the Jefferson School was relocated to the lower Ponus School. That's complete. We are on schedule and a little bit ahead of schedule in our design. We anticipate to be done by the end of November, or excuse me, mid-November, with construction documents and ready to go to the state by mid-November, early December, and then out to bid in January. Right now, we're trending on budget. Obviously, most of the expenses are just architectural expenses at this point, since we haven't started construction. But we're trending on budget with the estimates that we've produced so far. So things are looking good for this project. We've had and we've done a little bit more destructive investigation to determine and minimize any surprises during the construction phase. And destructive investigation means that we will remove some block or brick or drywall or ceiling tile to take a look up and see what's behind the wall or behind the ceiling. So that way we have a better understanding, the architect has a better understanding of what to anticipate, as well as the construction manager has a better understanding of what to anticipate during the demolition phase, and get that on the drawings so it's purchased rather than be a change order later on in the process.
And And Jim, I just want to note to the committee that the schedule you see, assuming that you can see this, the schedule as presented here, it's actually no, go back to the other one, please. Yeah, when you look at the schedule, talk about construction, guarantee maximum price and construction start date, that's all based on the Board of Ed's request to use Jefferson School for COVID-related purposes for this coming school semester, school year, not semester, school year. So we pushed the schedule about 3 months. The original schedule was we were supposed to start construction in March, February or March. So this schedule revised to accommodate the Board of Ed. But in the event, I mean, Board of Ed it's originally they were going to use the entire building, but I don't know all the details. But I think they drop off a little bit, and I don't know how much of school they actually going to use. So I guess eventually we will get a better idea how much the system Board of Ed will need this building. In the event they don't need it for next semester, we may go back to the original schedule, which is starting construction in March. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. So we are trying to accommodate the Board of Ed's needs. There is pushing the schedule out there, potential a little bit of cost. It's not substantial, but something that me and Jim have to work out with the construction manager, because we are tying their staff for this project, and now we pushed out a few months, so there may be some staffing costs that we need to potentially cover. So we'll work it out internally.
Yeah, that is one issue that, we may have additional costs on if it does get pushed out. But one of the other things, though, if it does get pushed out to a start date in June, we don't anticipate having to push out the finish date. We're anticipating to finish still within our June. It would be roughly 12 to 13 months. So we would be ready for the 2022 school year if we start in June.
Alan and Jim, just a quick question. If we have to push anything out, that doesn't jeopardize any of the grants, does it?
No, we got 2 years before we start, after the approval.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on Jefferson? Okay. Cranberry. Cranberry, we submitted a grant application for a new school, and some of you may remember, may understand that the gymnasium was slated to stay in the conceptual design. However, the state will consider it a new school because the gymnasium only represents 10% of the existing school. And in order to qualify for Renovate as a new project, we would have to keep 25% or more of the existing building. So this will be deemed a new school construction project. We submitted the grant this past June, and we immediately went out for qualifications for architectural firms in early July. We went through that process. We had interviews 2 weeks ago. We narrowed down the selection of 4 to have 3 architects submit proposals to us, of which we selected the lowest reasonable fee for this service. And let me back up a little bit to explain the process. We did it a little bit differently in the architect selection and CM selection for this project than we have in the past, where in the past we've had a combined qualification and proposal process. And this time we separated the qualification and the proposal process to have the architects submit their qualifications, to have the selection committee review those qualifications, come up with a short list of no more than 4 per the Connecticut General Statutes, and then interviewed those 4 firms, and then made a decision as to which firms we wanted to receive proposals from. We could have received from all 4, but we found that one of the proposers really lacked some, I I don't want to say understanding, but just lacked a enthusiasm for the project and really didn't do well with their interview when we felt that it wasn't necessary to offer a proposal or offer for them to submit a proposal on this. So we ended up reaching out to the three and received proposals. The lowest responsible proposal received for this, and you'll see as in the action items, was from Antonazzi Associates for the Cranberry project. We are, or we have received, or went out for construction management services. We issued an RFQ. We're following the same process as we did with the architect selection. We received the qualifications from the construction managers today. Again, we'll be going through their qualifications, shortlisting no more than 4, requesting interviews, and then inviting 2 or more CMs to submit proposals. Any questions on Cranberry?
The plan we have is showing the existing building with the kitchen addition. The initial scenario that we propose is actually a new addition on the front of the gym, which is where the parking lot is. But we are considering other alternative locations potentially. There's a lot of things that we need to consider in terms besides cost and phasing. We want to minimize the impact on continued operation of the school, occupancy of the school while the construction going on, and the demolition of the existing building afterward. So as soon as the architect get in play, we're going to start. We did initial analysis of this probably like 6 months ago, 9 months ago kind of thing. But we're going to do this all over again just to have a fresh look at it to see what other options available in terms of placement of the new addition. There's wetlands on the property, so that's one thing we need to continue to be concerned about. Okay.
We are on schedule for the Cranberry project.
Question on Cranberry. Now that the state has deemed this a new construction, new school, does that change the reimbursement rate versus a renovation?
It does. New school construction is roughly 10% less than a renovate as new project.
So we be.
So that means more out of the city coffers for the school versus if we were renovating it?
It does, yes.
Do we have an idea of how much more?
So the typical reimbursement rate for Norwalk is 33.21%. Your reimbursement for this would be 22.21%, or 23, excuse me, 0.21%.
Well, roughly 10% of $45 million.
Yeah.
So it'd be, let's say roughly $4 million difference, right?
Have we shared that with the chief financial officer, so he's aware that there's more money coming out from Norwalk for this project than we anticipated would be coming out?
I will. This is not something new. This what Jim mentioned about the determination whether it's renovation as new versus new construction. It's always is my understanding and my perspective understanding the state. There's always going to be a new project. It's not renovated. So whether if Henry doesn't know about it, I will remind him. But just speaking, this project always been a new construction budgeting.
Yeah, I do believe Henry is aware of this.
But nevertheless, we'll just remind him just in case he doesn't jump up at him. But bottom line, it's always been a new construction project in terms of interpretation of this project by the state.
I seem to recall discussions with Henry about this. Can I just, Jim, can I just ask you a favor to zoom in just a little tiny bit more?
Okay.
So I can see better. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, it doesn't have to be that big.
There we go. Sorry about that.
You might as well make it that big.
Oh, that was
Jim.
much better for me though.
I like it bigger.
Oh, thank
You
you.
want it? Do you want me to?
Yeah, a little
Oh,
bigger.
that's good. That's good. We were just kidding.
I'm good with that.
Let's keep moving.
Okay.
And just before we move away from PONUS, are we gonna have a opening ceremony, ribbon cutting for PONUS, or just move on from there here?
No, I don't mean no, but yeah, you know what? It's not a lot of excitement in terms of the building been used for the last 6 months, generally speaking, for Ponus Middle School and Jefferson moving in, and I know if we were to do something, it's really when Jefferson move out. I think we're going to end up doing a paint job in there afterward, as part of the Jefferson move. Once we move Jefferson out, I think we have to paint a lot of the space, especially the hallway. And that's the beginning of the real new school in the future, the STEAM school. So if anything, I mean, it's kind of strange, but at the same time, that's where really we will provide additional enrollment and the new STEAM school begin to open up, kind of thing. But again, it's strange to be 2 years later, but we weren't thinking, I wasn't thinking about having a ceremony kind of thing, because it's just, people have been in that new wing for last 6 months already. And it's also, the building takes a beating.
Alan, we also did have that ceremony when we sort of broke ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's keep going.
Okay, so Naramick, the kitchen expansion and cafeteria renovation, a $3.5 million project to build a new kitchen about 1,500 square feet adjacent to the existing library, and then split the existing library in half roughly, and create a cafeteria and a new media center. We submitted a grant application again in June, end of June of this year. We immediately went out for architectural services, again, following the RFQ, RFP process, which I described previously. We narrowed down to 4, interviewed those 4, and requested proposals from 3 of the firms. And again, Antonazzi was the low bidder on the architect services for the Naramick school kitchen expansion. During the interview process with the architects, Alan and I had some discussion as far as the construction delivery method on this project, because of the lower cost of this project. Where we seriously considered doing a general contractor delivery method versus a construction manager delivery method. And again, during the interview process, we brought
Excuse me, Jim, you might want to explain a little more what that means.
So the general contracting delivery method would be simply as the architects design the project with no input from a construction manager or construction company. The city would hire a professional cost estimator to make sure that the design is coming in within budget. And then it would go out for a public bid for the whole project. The problem with that method that we kind of were thinking about, but wanted to get verified, and the architects brought it up, pretty much all the architects, is the fact that we're going to have phasing within an existing building here, and we need a construction delivery method that really can work with us and work with the school and work with the architects in helping us through that process. A general contracting delivery method would be, we're done with the new kitchen addition. We're going to come into the existing library and take it over. And, if we have any delays because of your school activities, we're now going to submit a change order for delay. So with that in mind, we ended up deciding that the best delivery method for this, even though it's only a $3.5 million project, would be the construction management delivery method, because we'll be able to work with a construction company and work with the school at the same time and with the architect during the design to come up with the best phasing for this project, where we'll have minimal impact to the existing school and therefore also have minimal impact to the cost of the project. So that way the construction manager would buy the trade contractors or put into the trade contract scopes of work, the phasing that will be required, and sort of buy that phasing publicly, where it'll be more difficult to do that if we had a general contracting delivery method. Because once we set the phasing with the construction, with the general contracting delivery method, we're stuck to it. And if there's any hiccups, we have very little latitude that we're allowed with a general contracting delivery method.
How much money do you think that adds? How much cost?
You know, it's hard to say.
It is my perspective that it doesn't add any cost. The reason being is that the general contractor typically would do that mock-up and they would put money inside that we don't even know about, that to buffer their trade contractors' expenses. But with a construction manager, it's a working together, it's open book process, so we know exactly what the fees are, what all the costs are. So I don't anticipate typically when we do larger project, a CM process probably less expensive because everything is open book. It's a working relationship. We know what the markup is, the fee is, and everything else. So, and also because we're a general trade contractor, they go out to bid. Once they get the job, they go bid shopping and beat up the trade contractor. And then, they find the cheapest guy, contractor, subcontractor, electrician, plumbers, whatever out there. And they save the money and can keep it in the pocket. So again, I don't envision that CM would be any more costly. In fact, generally speaking, for larger projects, it's actually less expensive to do as construction management method.
Okay. All right, Jim, let's keep going.
Okay. Again, we're on schedule for NARAMIC. Norwalk High School. Norwalk High School is roughly 345,000 square foot new facility. We budgeted at 225 million. It will consist of essentially 3 schools in one structure, the P-TECH program, the comprehensive high school, and the performing and visual arts high school. We have not submitted a grant application on that project as of yet. We're waiting for the school construction bill to be approved. We anticipate that is going to be approved sometime this month. We will need some time to finalize the grant application after we hear from the state that the project has been approved in the school construction bill. It'll take us probably, depending on when it gets approved and how it falls within the Common Council and land use schedule, it could take us a month to 2 months. We being myself and the Board of Ed, Nina Laria, are working to get all the other information ready to go for when this gets approved, or if this gets approved by the state, so that way we have as a minimal amount of downtime as possible to get the grant application submitted to the state and get moving on this project.
So assume that the state approved 80% reimbursement rate for this project, we will be coming back to land use probably in October to go through the normal approval process and just authorization to submit a grant application to the state and all that. So typically it's like a 3 different action that we need, and it would be on the October meeting agenda.
Correct. And there was one last item that was left over from some previous project, which was the replacement of the scoreboard. We put up the new scoreboard. We found that the paint was peeling. We had notified the manufacturer, and they constructed a brand new scoreboard and replaced it at the beginning of August. So all the previous work to date has been completed.
Okay. Any questions on Jim's presentation before we move on? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Let's go to item B2. Oh, Jim, sorry.
I'm sorry, Tom. Any update on the new South Norwalk School?
The new Columbus School at this time, we're looking at opportunities for land in South Norwalk, as well as having discussions with the Board of Ed in terms of what is actually needed for that school. Alan, you might have a little bit more to say on that.
Yeah, we are staff-wise. I'm revisiting the. I know this is a Board of Ed responsibility, but we are looking at the enrollment count a little bit to see how big of this school needs to be. This school is being replacing existing one with the old school being renovated. At such time will be an additional gain of 450 seats or so. We want to take one last look at it before we actually push to go to acquire property for this building. I want to make sure that the size of school we're building, it's whether it's too small or too big, whatever it is, I want to get that reconfirmed before I actually go submit some requests to the city and the Board of Education. So we are in the finishing the process in terms of evaluating capacity needs and stuff. Typically, it's a Board of Ed function, but we took it up on ourselves internally, staff-wise, to do some analysis to see what we come up with. So we are in conversation with the Board of Ed staffs and the superintendent on some of these numbers. So because we're reopening school, Board of Ed's been pretty busy. So that's a little bit of the delay. I intend to schedule a meeting with them probably middle of September. This will be our third meeting to see if we can reach some understanding between the city and the Board of Ed that the enrollment count we need for New Columbus School. Because it affects how much property we buy. That's the reason why we acquire. So that's why that's why it's important to figure out what the needs are.
Anything else, Jim, on this?
And then just the old Columbus, the Norwalk Global Academy, really dependent on what happens with New Columbus. The only other thing, Tom, if you want, have an update on.
I have a question.
Go ahead, darling.
So, so for the New Columbus, so you're reevaluating capacity. So, do you have any properties in mind that you're looking at for the New Columbus?
Yes, and I believe me and you have spoken of this previously. It's still the same piece.
Oh, same location. Okay,
Right,
so
same
nothing's
location,
changed as
but,
far as that's
again,
concerned.
because of potential acquisition and stuff, I don't want to talk about
Right.
publicly because the property.
No,
owner-
got it.
So at the same time, we don't know how much to propose. So that's why
Right.
we are very sensitive. Again, I
Okay.
don't want to approach.
So there's some areas and they're still on the same track.
We're
Just-
same track, and I
Same
mean,
track.
unfortunately, it is taking. It's very difficult.
It's been a frustrating process. I can say that.
Yeah, we need to really focus, and there's a possibility that this project Board of Ed need to look at this building as this new Columbus School as well as the old Columbus School together again.
Okay.
Based on what we come up with, what may work. Financially, we have a problem. The reason being is that the new Columbus School is budgeted $45 million, and the old one's budget. Can you turn the next page, Jim? I think it's 35, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, $34 million. But if you go acquire property, if you acquire, like, let's for discussion say 10 acres, it would cost us $10 more million that we don't have. So that's a struggle I have in terms of doing the right thing for the city. It's just double check for the second, third time, or whatever it may be, that how much space do we really, what the enrollment needs are. And I know it's not a function of the city, but at the same time as we we are spending money to satisfy that. I just need to check and double check that, time changes. I mean, the study was done 4 or 5 years ago. And there's immigration, there's new families in the community and stuff. At the same time, there's whatever kind of thing. So I just wanted to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Besides, we don't have the money, so we got to think of strategy how to do this. So this is all kind of come together at this point. My goal is still to go to stay approved, submit this project to stay in June 2021. It's going to be a struggle again. Every time, this is like the third year we delay this project, not delay this project, but we struggle through trying to push this project through. But it is still a struggle. But again, I think that there's some serious discussion need to have as soon as we finish this capacity evaluation and then stop talking to the Board of Ed. And they really need to look at it one more time. Basically, depends on what we find, right? And then to come up with some recommendation together, and then we come back to the city, and then we got to decide, and then we got to start the acquisition process.
And so has the funding been reallocated other places?
No, it's still here.
So the money is still here?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
that's why we got $34 million.
Okay.
The only people that can change the money around is the Common Council.
Okay.
So the money doesn't go anywhere unless there's a process, and then and the council will know about it. I mean, not more than know about it. The council had to make the decision to move the money out. So the money, both of the project, the money is sitting there. We spent a lot of money on the New Columbus already, but we all know. I mean, everything went through I know we spent 3.5 million. 1.2 is for land acquisition, and the other stuff, it's all documented in all the Common Council actions. So. I mean, we spent money on this project already, but at the same time, there's many reasons, and we need to continue to. I'm hoping that middle of September, between the city and the board, that's at least on staff level, we come up with some understanding and potentially submit to the board to take the next step.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I want to keep moving unless there are other questions on this. All right, Jim, you said you want to touch something else. What was it you want to touch on?
Just an update on Maritime Aquarium.
Okay, very quickly.
Yeah, let me do the Maritime Aquarium. It's moving along. We recently passed the amendment to extend the time and stuff, and we are. There's a lot of difficulty work in front of us, but we are moving along. So anybody interested, you can drive by there and you can see the building, the new theater. It's all framed. Brick is going up. The interior, mechanical, electrical is all being installed. We have some critical path coming up about doing the theater slope flooring, and then the seating, the new 4D seating, it's actually in town already. It's being installed in town, so we're looking to deliver the finished space in the theater by late November, so they can start putting chairs in. There's more than the chairs, all the 4D equipment that need to go in. So generally speaking, we are on schedule with the on schedule with the extended schedule, and then the seal tank, it's continuing to have a lot of difficulty because site conditions and waterproofing the tank and everything else. But generally speaking, we're still on schedule, so everything's moving along. We got the next group of money from money from the state, which is $10 million to continue with our project. So they're satisfied with our progress, and we do monthly report to them, so they are fully aware of what we're doing. So anyway, so everything is moving along, and then yeah, and the Maritime Aquarium is actually open right now, so there are family going there somewhat regularly, but supporting community is continuing to be needed.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Go back to the agenda. Item B2, which is review architect's proposal for the Merrimack School Kitchen Improvement Project, and refer the following to Common Council for approval. A, authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an agreement with Antonazi Associates PC to provide architectural design services for the Merrimack Elementary School Kitchen Addition Project for a total not to exceed $239,200, account noted. B, authorized to establish a contingency for additional services as may be required for a total not to exceed $23,920. Do you have a motion?
I'll move that.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. All right, we've already talked about this a little bit. Anything you want to add, and any questions?
Not for me.
David, I think you had a question. You want to?
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I'm just curious about, I know that we're about to vote on this and then Antonazzi is going to come up again. And they're also the Jefferson architect. And how do you feel right now about timing with everything from that firm being able to do all of these jobs?
I'm fine because the Jefferson project is winding down. They're in the construction document phase. And like I said earlier, they're a little bit ahead of schedule on Jefferson. So they do have the capacity to handle multiple projects. So I'm not concerned. I do know some of their current projects other than Norwalk are winding down. If I knew that they had other projects out there, I might be a little bit more concerned, but understanding where they are on other projects outside of Norwalk, I'm not so concerned. I think, they have a couple of projects coming offline and they have staff ready to go.
Okay, yeah, my concern is with Naramac is, even though, I mean, I know it's a small figure in comparison, but it, as we well know, looking at that space, it's got a lot of little nuances to it. And I think that it could take a lot of, fair amount of resource and time in the planning phase. And I don't want to see a firm overloaded and then we end up shortchanging one of those jobs.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. One thing to note on Antonazzi's submittals between Cranberry and Naramick, they did use different MEP consultants.
Mechanical consultant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I know I'm part of the Naramac
correct
team that did that interviewing in that, and I mean, of all of the candidates were very well qualified, and I'm comfortable with any one of them. My concern is that we now have one firm doing 3 school construction projects sort of back to back, and I just want to make sure that we're comfortable with that. So
no, that's a legitimate concern, but like I said, understanding what their workload is right now, I'm not so concerned. If it was different, then I may have made a suggestion that we be careful.
They gave a very good presentation for Naramac, so I'm happy with that their the choice. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sanchinelli?
Aye.
Mr. Roberts?
Aye.
Yes, and I also approve, so that's unanimous. Thank you. Let's move on to B3. Review architect's proposals for the Cranberry School new construction project. Refer the following to the Common Council for approval. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Antonazzi Associates PC to provide architectural design services for the Cranberry Elementary School new construction project for a total not to exceed $1,824,000, account noted. B, authorized to establish a contingency for additional services as may be required for a total not to exceed $91,200. Have a motion? Mr. Ullman, thank you. Again, we've talked about this already, but any questions, comments?
I just want to add just one minor thing. On Naramick, we did a 10% for contingency. Here we only do a 5% because the contract is much larger, so that we're not looking for 10%. We're looking at 5% for in case there's changes in design services.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Ullman?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Mr. Burnett? I'm going across my screen here.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith.
Aye. Mr. Burnett, aye.
Yeah. Mr. Keegan?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Sanchinelli?
Aye.
Mr. Roberts?
Aye.
I think that's an aye. And I also vote. Yeah, great, thank you. And I also vote aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, good night, Jim.
Good night, Jim.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Good night.
All right, so the last item is a follow-on from last month, and this is a discussion on the tenants' rent utility payment relief request we talked about last time. Alan? and I have spoken about a little bit since then. Alan, you want to sort of bring people up to date?
I don't have, Greg has some concern about, not concern, but suggestion potentially like setting some criterias. I mean, me and Tom talked about it probably at least two times already, 3 times. We just can't think of any criteria because the needs of individual groups are very different. I mean, so the groups are, first of all, the dollar amount isn't substantial. Second of all, is that some groups get through this, they may get some state money and stuff, and so their needs are different. They may be future needs, and the solution could be very different too, because each one of these needs are very different. What their contribution is, besides the dollar amount, is they may be providing other services. So we just can't come up with a formula that we can, or criteria that we can say, okay, we'll do this and that, because even if some of the group that needed it, they find a way to get through it, but they still, I think the strategy maybe if they need help is really moving forward because they cover those costs already, kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not sure. I guess there's always a concern about perspective and that we favor one nonprofit group versus another. But at some point, it is the city's decision what we think it's where the help is needed, kind of thing, instead of just globally, because some of the group got through it and they're not looking for money, but yet why do we want to set a procedure that will provide them funding that they don't need, kind of thing? So I don't know.
Well, just let me, Alan, just cut in a little bit here. I mean, we have a couple, you have a couple of possibilities. You have the one, you just give everybody relief, even people who didn't ask for it. The other end is you don't give anybody relief. And then you try and come up with something in the middle. And then when this one Alan was referring to, we talked about, well, what if they're, say, a national organization that has a lot of funds versus a very local organization that has very limited funds? Are they really in the same situation? How do you treat them that way? I think the important thing, after speaking with Darren Callahan in the legal department, is that we do it without regard to the entity, so to speak, in terms of what, we're not going to treat like it's like one group and different than another group in the same position. The important thing is that we treat all people fairly and with the same considerations, but that doesn't necessarily translate into an easy rule because they're all different. I mean, Crystal Theater is different than Head Start. I mean, that's not the same. So it's not an idea. It would be ideal if we could check the box, but it doesn't work that way.
And even Head Start is different from Head Start is like it's a larger group from the state, the manager program with federal funding. Meanwhile, the other two early childhood program, it's local folks that running these programs, and they get state money, and the money for the state actually intercepted for the so the ability to get funding is different from the other group, even they're both providing early childhood care. So it's hard to standardize it. We just have to look at, my suggestion, we look at the specific needs and figure what works for some, one of the groups, and how much, and also too is it's get complicated because even though the program running now, they have reduced participation. So how much they reduce, some groups may be able to do less, somebody may do a little bit more than, half the whatever kind of thing. So we got to look at what kind of revenue they can generate too. And at some point we get too much into the business. End of the day, these are not like, we're not, these rental payment is not $100,000, $200,000 kind of thing. It's 10 grand a year, 15 grand a year kind of thing. So I don't want to create all these policies and stuff. We were trying to help these individual nonprofit group or community groups. At the same time, I think, but the more we struggle through this, there's more time we spend, and if they do need some support, by the time we figure something out, it'd be 2-3 months later. So again, the amount of money that we're talking about it's not substantial enough that we need a policy, and then all these regulated kind of stuff. So I don't know. So that's my thoughts.
David,
what time frame are they looking at, or are they?
They don't. The comments I got so far is that anything the city can do could help, and again, so like Crystal Theater, they got through the last few months, but they're running some only minimum program of 20 kids and stuff, but they got big utility bills, because they pay us whatever money they pay us, but they still get, they're paying for their own gas service. So winter times will come. So their needs are different. You
Well,
know?
I guess what my point is you bring up the fact that you're not talking about a lot of money across the board for these rents. So is it so inconceivable that we would say, regardless of where they're getting other funding from, that we were to say we give, because of the situation that we're in, you know, is it going to kill us to give a 2-month moratorium on rent to all these renters? Or does that get us into a dodgy area down the road? I mean, these are unique situations and unique times. And I think that if we show some benevolence, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a goodwill thing, isn't it? I mean,
Right. And again, they don't have a very specific request. I look at don't get me wrong, I look at the two church groups a little different because the separation of church and state kind of thing. It's a little different from the other nonprofit groups, right? And I think if the committee said to me and Tom, that, you know what, this is one of the things that we could consider. It's like pretend, like you said, for 2 months kind of thing, and then let's approach them and come up with something that you know, that's potentially that the committee could entertain and consider. Because for Crystal Theater, I mean, potentially they are responsible to maintain their mechanical equipment for the Crystal Theater. And because it's 20 years old or something, they potentially has a heavy mechanical repair bills that they get. And that's unknown to them, but it's a substantial cost potentially. So I haven't told them anything. I know there's a public meeting, but I haven't said anything to them what the city is considering. But one thing I would consider is that equipment, it's on city building, they've been maintained for the last 20 years. We can conceivably take it over, so reduces the financial burden and risk. So it could be done in different ways than just you know, a reduction on rent kind of thing. So there are different leases, different positions. So if we can decide that, you know what, we're not going to set a formula for all the tenant, then we can go and talk to them, and we can staff-wide, we can figure out what's the most benefit from the, you know, from a lease arrangement that we can make with them that could help them at a minimum cost to the taxpayer, but yet we provide some benefit that really helps them.
I mean, just to take Crystal Theater, for example, you know, I don't know whether a 2-month rent waiver would get them there.
Yeah, they're considered to next June, right? But at the same time, the risk of capital costs on repairs on the heating system is substantial for them. So by us doing something, potentially taking over the system and maintaining the system for them, that may be that may be enough. So again, it's very different kind of discussion for each tenant, you know. And with the two early child program, they got through the last few months, but they have additional PPE protection and staffing needs for the next, let's say, 9 months kind of thing. So some kind of rent reduction or subsidy relief could be helpful, whether it's 20%, 50%, 100%, whatever. I don't know what that number would be. So, I mean, that's what we need some guidance on, I guess, in terms of talking to them.
I have a question that, you know, if the city were to take over the maintenance, I mean, wouldn't they have a contract with some kind of maintenance company?
I don't think the truth is, I don't think they maintain it pretty well.
Mhm.
So I think what happened is that this is like 20, 25 years ago when I negotiated the lease with Crystal Theater. They put in like 100,000 or 200,000. They did a fundraising to raise money because they weren't using the auditorium. The city was not using the auditorium. So Crystal Theater used to be a city function program, and they becomes a nonprofit. So they're interested in the building, and since we haven't used it for 10 years, whatever it might be already, we thought that, you know, they go off private fundraising, raise $100,000 to $200,000. They can put a new mechanical system in just to service their portion of the building, bring a new gas line in, they maintain it, they pay for the gas portion. Meanwhile, they pay rent to the city to cover electrical and fire alarm system, their share by square footage. It's a whole formula we calculated, and that's what they pay. But during these trials, I mean, the system is 20+ years old now. So at some point, I don't think they're in a position to continue to maintain it and replace it. So at some point, if the system fails tomorrow, they probably will come into the city asking for our help. But at the same time, this is a mechanical system on a city building. At some point, we got in my view, as a person that negotiated a lease agreement with them like some 20 years ago, whatever it is, I think we got what we needed from them. At some point, the system is getting old and deteriorated. And as building management, I have my guys run a look at the system to see what it does and what it thinks. It hasn't been really well maintained either. So I think it's in everybody's interest that if we do take care of it, it helps them, and also in the long run, it probably help us because they may be coming to cities that says, look, we can't afford it, then we end up taking care of it anyway. But at that point, I'd rather maintain it properly now than let it continue to deteriorate and have a shorter lifespan on the equipment. So that was something I'm thinking.
Alan, what do you, I mean, I wish there was an easy answer.
Yeah.
It worked for everybody. But another way of looking at this is to have each organization that asks for this to give us a formal request, and then we consider each one as a group. I mean, the important thing is we treat everybody fairly, and we don't discriminate against anybody. But I mean, for us to sort of just go out and say we're going to give it without knowing what people need, I think there is a goodwill element of it, but I don't think it necessarily solves the problem because we don't know what people need.
Right. I could do that.
Oh, question, are they all currently up to date with their rent?
I believe everybody is except the church group at 4 Tito Court. I got to double check. Don't hold me to it. But as far as I know, I think that's the only one that hasn't been paying. I need to double check. I believe everybody has been paying.
Yeah, the church groups are interesting because they have no congregants, giving money.
Well, I mean, some churches are still getting their tithes online.
Yeah,
even though they're not meeting in person, people are still paying their tithes, virtually online, credit cards, et cetera, mailing it in.
Right. As much as I say this, for 4 Tito Court, we do not provide any services over there. Right. We don't do anything because originally the plan is to acquire the property. We're going to tear it down for New Columbus School. So the agreement, the way it's set up is that we don't provide any repair, maintenance, anything to that building. They're supposed to take care of everything themselves. And they pay $750 a month to us. So that
do we have an idea of what other cities are doing with their city-owned properties that they're renting out to entities? Like, is Stanford or any other neighboring towns?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, I like Tom's idea, but we've asked them. I just don't want to get all these requests coming. It's not that many tenants anyway. So maybe I can approach them, give us an honest request instead of something that's like escalated, thinking that we'll cut it back kind of thing, right? So we want to an honest request as to what they think, that what kind of help they're looking for. Then we'll decide what we at that point.
I think that would be all we can do, is to take each case individually.
I think that's right. I'm also not suggesting we go out to people who you haven't spoken to or haven't raised the issue, but anybody who has, say, give us put in writing. What do you need? And why do you think you're entitled to it? Well, not necessarily that way, but I mean, give us factors to support your request.
But it also, brings us back to the individual, we're looking at each case on an individual basis. And what, Alan, you just brought up the idea that, well, what might be better is we could take over and do this for the building. Would that help you? We can come up with some ideas that could help based on the request. And if we don't have a request, we don't have any discussion, that's right. It makes sense. It's got to be case by case, I think.
I agree that asking them to submit what they might need is kind of a first step, but it then brings us full circle again in terms of who do we say yes to and who do we say no to. But at least we can make that decision based upon some data point, based upon their submittal.
Greg, I hear your point. I think it'll be easier for us when we have the request in front of us and we know what people are asking for and who they are, and Alan will be able to figure out what alternatives are too.
Yeah, I agree.
I try to get something together for next month.
All right.
Okay. All right. That's it.
Anything else? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Nobody
Aye.
opposed.
A thumbs
Thank
up,
you
yeah.
guys very much. Long meeting. Appreciate it. Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Have a good holiday,
Thank
everyone.
you, Larry.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.